Hello, listeners, and welcome to this, the 48th episode of the Heresy Accountability Buddies podcast. I'm Jacob, and on this episode, I'm joined by
Duncan,
Jack,
Jamie,
John,
and special guest from the one and only Ineptus Astartes,
Ned.
Ned, it's great to have you back on the show. It's been a while, so we're very excited to bring you on board. Got a fantastic show coming up here for you. We're going to go over some of the latest pre-orders, talk about some hobby progress. We're going to float some questions to you, our listeners, some of which include what kind of events do you like to host, what kind of events do you like to attend, and if you would like this show to cover the new, what did we say the game was, Legiones Imperialis, which is to say Heresy Epic. We'll be talking a little bit about some of that before we finally segue into some White Scars content. Ned has been gracious enough to join us for that purpose.
And I'm super pumped.
Yeah, we're glad to have you on board. Without further ado, John, do you want to take us away on hobby progress?
Yeah, so this week, having a holiday and having some other weird medical stuff going on, I didn't get a ton of time to do a lot of hobby stuff. I tried to pick it up a little bit with this weekend. I managed to get all of the knight armor primed, so that includes all 10 sets of armor for the Questoris Knights, the 2 sets of armor for the Lancers, and I think it's close to 14 sets of armor for the Armigers, all primed up. And then I started cleaning up some parts and managed to get the start of the leg poses done for my new Lancer. I'm going to try to make him walking down a set of stairs, kind of an arrogant pose. Since he's going to be my kind of war leader, I want him to look like he's just kind of ready to charge and take whatever needs to be done, but with a bit of flair of arrogance to him with the way his lance is going to be positioned. And so I put a nearly 3-inch long brass rod through the 2 leg pieces and through the crotch area, and then cut a couple trenches in there so I could kind of play back and forth with the leg poses while I was waiting for that glue to dry. And then my mom's birthday was this week, and so my dad took her down to a nice kind of a rhinestone and gem shop to pick up some stuff for some of the crafting stuff she likes to do in retirement. And he picked me up a bunch of rhinestones that work really well for replacing the lenses in a lot of the very smaller kind of scanners. These are really, really small, and I did some Googling afterwards and found out that there's actually a rhinestone sizing guide on Amazon and a bunch of other places. So if you look for these rhinestones are actually called size SS6, and that means they're about 2 millimeters across. And so that puts them in the same size area as roughly Space Marine eye lenses, except they're circular. So if you've ever seen those little scanners that are on most guns and most like the turn signal area on a Land Raider, going way back,
turn signals on a Land Raider.
Yep.
to the comic back then. They can either come in flat backed or they can come in diamond backed. And if they're diamond back, they have a little bit more sparkle to them, but you'll have to drill the area out before you put them in there. I know I like to try to put in as much little weird hobby gribblies that I find between these and the acupuncture needles for aerials that Michael shouted out, called those out a while ago. You can find a bunch of different areas for supplementing your hobby with sometimes not a lot of money. And the other thing I bought this week was I bought 100 feet of braided picture hanging wire off of Amazon for $7, and that's going to be a bunch of cabling that's cut and spliced in different areas for ZM stuff. And so 100 feet of braided cable, if you're going to buy anything else, is going to be a lot more than $7 if you're looking at like hobby supplies and things like that. So trying to find every other place I can to save as much money as possible. But other than that, just been trying to get ready for my event coming up on the 29th locally. That's going to be a one-day event, and then obviously we got Texas Open coming up in early August, but which will lead us into our discussions about events later. Since I am done with all my hobby talks, I will go with Jamie. Welcome back.
Yep. Long time no talk to y'all. Sorry, I had family duties, and I have been lounging on the beach in Florida, watching the Blue Angels practice, and my kids catch sharks off the pier. Um, so I got back from that and a short trip to visit my parents in Kentucky. Did not see Jack and Duncan because I was literally there for about a day and a half. And I have been working on building out the Toys for Tots Word Bearer army. I'm trying to get it ready to ship to the painter, Brian. Everybody, a lot of people know him as Odin online. Um, I've been building. I've built out the basic stuff and all the kits that really didn't need a whole lot of modification. And then this weekend, I built a dread drop pod, and several of the spoiler squads, and what was a vet squad. And I've had to 3D print a bunch of course, because like you can't get them easily. Thunderhammers, lots of Thunderhammers, and I had to print some despoiler arms, and I guess assault marine arms as well, so that I could, put smaller weapons and close combat weapons in their arms. So I've been working on that tonight, and was getting some information from Jacob about magnet sizes for the Charybdis that goes with them, and the dread drop pod. Even though it's finished, I can still put the magnets in up at the top. So that is what I have been working on. Oh, and I also got the remainder of my my Dark Angels Iron Wing models that I needed to finish the list in. So I got a brace of new Predators and a brace of Sarkarians. So yeah, I have a lot of medium and small size tanks right now that I need to get on, but I'm not going to touch them until I get to get through the tot stuff first. So I will pass it on to Jack.
Howdy all. This week for a hobby, I have worked on a YouTube video discussing the finer points of the Harbor Freight Avanti airbrush. Made a video of that. Worked on some of my Imperial Fist Dudemen. Whoever decided that they were going to be Mark III was a jerk. And whoever decided that all the detail work was going to be plucked out was also a jerk. Outside of that, downloaded the doors to the rear end of a Primaris, whatever their repulsor tank, to see if I could get it to work on a Thunderhawk. And after some resizing, it looks like it's going to be able to work. So that's been my hobby progress for the week. Duncan, what about you?
Oh, let's see here. This week I kind of did a hobby how-to airbrushing wise with a buddy of mine who is just getting started in the hobby. Trevor, shout out to you, brother. I've assembled 5 more dudes so that I can try sometime in the next couple weeks to get a How I Paint Sons of Horus video done. I'm just going to do these guys as the spoilers, so I'm going to have to get some chain axe arms for them. But I've got those. Jamie has printed a number of those for me, and I'll get those when I get them.
This week, I'm mailing them out.
You're my hero, brother.
Yes.
So I'm going to try to put that video together the next week or so. I've been working more on the Blood Angels. I've got the first squad rank and file is just about done, to be honest with you. There's a few touch-ups here and there and a bit more detail, and their decals that I got to put on them before I do their final round of battle damage and weathering. But the past day and a half, I've been working a lot on the Delegatus / Praetor / whatever he's going to be. I finally finished picking out his wings. Then there's a lot of them on this model. There's wings on his sword hilt. There's wings on his sword pommel. There's wings on his shoulder pad. There's wings on his chest plate. Wings on his lower legs. There's a wing on his his pistol holster. I mean, there's just too many wings on this model. But I finally got all the wings picked out, done, whited, darked, and then white highlighted again to bring them back out and give them more pop. And I've been working on the gemstones today with a whole multiple layers of Waywatcher green, trying to get all the gems to actually look right and pop properly. Other than that, I moved some more furniture around the basement to try to do more basement heresy when the time comes. Beyond that, that's about all I've done, so I will kick it off to Jacob.
That's an unfortunate thing to kick off to. I don't have any particular hobby progress to report on this week, and I apologize for that.
You edited a podcast.
Well, I mean, yeah, but like, that's
Hey, this is part of our hobby, man. It counts.
that's
I
fair.
lay claim to YouTube videos. You lay claim to editing podcasts.
I'm down for it if you guys are giving it to me.
Yep. I mean, you're doing it. We all appreciate it. So it counts.
There we
Absolutely.
go. Sounds like the last of us who has not yet gone is Ned. Am I right there?
I think maybe.
That
So
really works for me.
I got a burr to try to go back and look at some old I was reinvigorated by the introduction of Epic, Heresy Epic. And I was thinking about old lists, like, so I don't know if we'll talk about this or not, but my thought was, oh my gosh, am I gonna need an Epic Legion for every one of my regular, armies? That seems like I might have to happen. So I was thinking about some of my other projects that I had abandoned, and I went back and was picking at my Dark Angels because I had started working on Firewing and trying to make that work for a while. And I got kind of frustrated about a year ago and put it away. And I got back on it last week, and I built some new models, and I found and I played a game today with a new list and had a really great time against my friend Ben, who many of you met at Adepticon and who sometimes guests on my podcast, Ineptus Astartes, and had a great time with that. But then I've posted 2 new videos in the last 2 weeks on my YouTube channel as well. So I've been pretty busy with that because I had a long dry spell there at the end of the school year. So getting back into all of that.
Forgot there is one more bit of hobby stuff that I did.
Let's go.
Yeah, I had some too. I just remembered too as well.
So Elric's Hobbies put out that they have a Kolinsky Sable brush set of, looks like 2 size 0, or sorry, 2 size 0s, 2 size 1s, 2 2s, a 3, and a 7. And my brushes, I'm down to pretty much 2 that are worth a darn at this point. So I went ahead and bit the bullet, and I ordered my first actual set of Sable brushes.
Oh, wow.
Do you mind me asking how much they were?
$70.
Okay.
It's not bad.
I've never ordered Sable brushes before. I've never used Sable brushes before. I've always used Yi generic hobby brush or GW brushes or army painter brushes. And I figured bite the bullet, try to find out if they're worth the hype. So I'll let you know next week if they're worth a darn, because when they get here, I'm going to be using them.
I've been using a set of where are the good ones that the Sable ones that everybody usually gets.
Games and Gears.
No. They're not hobby. They're not. Say again.
Newton. Series 7?
Windsor Newton.
Yeah, Windsor Newton Series 7.
Yeah, Windsor Newton Series 7. I've been using a set for almost 12 years now. And as long as you take care of them, they work great.
So the other, off of that, we have some other good news in that Conversion World has said that he's reached an agreement to continue selling his products through Archie's World, or Archie's Forge, which is a 3D printing service. Ironically enough, my buddy and I found Archie's Forge through a Facebook ad 2 weeks ago, and we built an order and placed it last week. And so I'll let y'all know what the quality looks like when that comes in. He had some really nice cataphracti arms that are just open, so that way you can add whatever close combat weapons you want. And he has a whole bunch of legionary bits that I really liked as well. My buddy ordered some Word Bearer stuff and some Dark Angel stuff for the 2 legions he's working on, and I ordered some Ultramarines heads and shields. But I'll definitely give a review when those come in, and so that way we're not completely cut off from the Conversion World awesomeness.
Very cool. Super exciting to see. I know there were a couple of us who felt like we either barely got in the door for a last set of bits or had come up wanting on those. So that's really exciting to be able to see that from the other way around, so to speak. Likewise, in the wide world of news, we do have this week's Heresy pre-orders. If I'm correct, it's the Sons of Horus Decurion, correct?
Yes.
Indeed.
Yeah, the one that Duncan took one look at and he went, man, I'm going to need that helmet if nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, it's got different head options on it, and after seeing the one with the crest and the strange spike sticking out of the crest, I don't care about the rest of the model. I just want to buy that guy and take the head and put it on something.
It's
Oh,
cool.
well.
It's a very cool looking model. I will give it that.
Such is life. The ever growing pile of stuff that I want that I'll never get around to.
The rules for that are pretty great too, honestly. I think there are a lot of really cool narrative ways you could include that upgrade into a Suns list.
There
I
are
really
if
appreciate
if
that.
I
If he
If
had
I-
tanks.
if I use tanks.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah, that's one of those ones too that I wish the Ultramarines got for militia, or even if you want to go and we talked about the inductee, a
Yeah.
full inductee rite of war would be really cool with that guy
Yep.
for any legion.
I kind of wish they had just had a generic one. That would be kind of.
Yep.
Because like
I talked about it. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to go ahead, Ned. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say I talked about it on YouTube, but man, I hope we don't have to wait 8 more books for like everybody else's special little, because I absolutely loved the way the content was put out. Like if that was the template, if that was the format, that little bit of flavor, I'd be pretty happy with that. But if it trickles out that slow, like I'd rather like give me a PDF. Like before, around the time the next book comes out, give me everybody else's little Decurions in that, and there's more than enough bits out there to kit bash, and then move on to something else, But
Makes sense.
yeah,
Yeah, I think for my Dark Angels, I was gonna get Sergeant Cronus for
Yep.
from
Yeah.
the Ultramarines and like do a little kit bashing on him for the Commander tank. So.
mm-hmm.
But yeah, it'd be cool if there was just like a generic one that came out with those 2 others that were Legion specific. So.
Well, and I mean, it was like with the new plastic kits, you've got all of those upgrade.
Yeah.
I mean, like you've got tons of.
No, I know.
They did
I
a
just-
fantastic job giving you extra cool bits to cycle through. So even if you want to put like a dude on every tank, he doesn't have to look the same, and you don't even have to dig into your own bits there. It's in the backs already. So I hope it would be cool if they did that, but who knows?
Shall we talk about the elephant in the room, the other new release from GW?
Let's go ahead.
Well,
It's a big one.
actually, it's a really small release, to be honest.
They already have a plastic Thunderhawk though.
They do, which is something that we don't have yet.
Yep, that's they're one ahead.
So, I don't remember the actual name for it, but it's basically Epic Horus Heresy, and Epic Scale or slightly Epic Scale for those of us who were around in the '90s and played Epic, which unfortunately includes myself. It looks really cool. You're getting Marines and Solar Aux. You're getting tanks. You're
Titans.
getting Titans.
Yep.
You're getting all the stuff that gets thrown into big apocalypse games on a much smaller scale. It's not Heresy scale or whatever our actual millimeter size is, but it is Heresy related, so it's Heresy adjacent. And it's going to be cool. It's going to be neat. GW is going to push it. It's how to replay some of the really big games or really big scenarios and stuff, or stuff out of the books in the novels. It's cool. It looks neat. I like it. I don't know if I like it enough to buy into it, but
For me, it will depend on the cost.
Yeah.
that's fair.
I've got enough, so I have some leftover Epic stuff that I've been picking up for Titanicus bases. I always thought that the 6mm stuff looked best on the existing AT stuff. because it gave them such a grander sense of scale. And so I have some existing stuff, some formware metal casts, and then I might have picked up some of the molds from that person when they decided to go from resin to metal. I bought some of their resin molds. I just haven't gotten around to using them yet. And the best part about this new Epic is everything's in existing base sizes. So if you want to keep your old Epic, so Epic 1.0 used circle bases, Epic 3.0, which is where GW left the game, used square bases. And so you can actually use some of your old Epic models to play new Epic, or new Imperialis, or whatever you want to call it. So I think that's actually what I will probably be doing, is looking at what I already own and then supplementing that with maybe some newer things. Or maybe seeing if someone can 3D print the things that I'm missing in 6mm scale, so that way everything is the same scale for me.
My big issue is I'm pretty sure that I'm not going to be able to get rules for my squat land train. So
Your what?
Probably not. Squat land train, man.
yeah. I had a epic squat army, and it was cool. You had gyrocopters. You had their answer to the Titan was a land train that had multiple cars on it, with a great big honking gun that could pretty much not quite one shot big Titans, but it would definitely put a hurt on them.
And so you're done. That's it. No more for you. I'll go upstairs and flip my dining room table after I'm done recording tonight for you.
So like basically, if you were a child of the '80s, like they had those Tyco train and truck sets that were like you could get with armies and stuff. That's basically what this is. It's like a G.I. Joe train with guns all over it, but it's for squats.
Yep, and it's in 6mm scale, and it's just overblown ridiculousness. And of course, I'm not quite certain where in my hobby pile of junk that I have it stored, but I've got that and some berserkers still. I've got some of the bikers, some of the gyrocopters, some of the exo armor, and some of the Brotherhood. I've got it somewhere over here. I know it's not going to be of any use, but I might be able to proxy it into Solar Ox or something. It'll just be, if I play, I'll focus on playing with some of that if I still have it enough to put together a functional army.
I mean, I think my big thing is that I have been dying. I've had this vision to do, like a weekend event that incorporates multiple games. And I don't have a lot of people yet around here that play Titanicus, for example. I do have a few people who play Aeronautica, but like if we could find a way to, and I'm sure we could, incorporate this into something with Age of Darkness and then add Titanicus in like a campaign point system for like a Siege of Terra weekender, I think that'd be absolutely fantastic and fun. So I'm excited about it. But you're right, it does depend. I am curious as how much these things are going to cost. The other thing is, as many people as have, because I mean, like, it's funny because this is a system that has been dead officially for how long?
Oh, geez.
A long
20 years?
Yeah.
More?
I think longer than that.
Yeah,
no, I think the last edition of Epic was like,
it was the 2000s. It was early 2000s.
It was right after third edition dropped.
Right.
Oh, okay.
It was prior to me getting in the hobby because I came in at the tail end of third, and that was Epic was already out by then.
Yeah, because like I don't remember seeing any new models for it, and I played third edition Warhammer, and that's where I came into Warhammer, and I don't really remember seeing people play it then. That would have been in the 90s. That would have been in the mid 90s, right?
It was like the drop ship and some other models that came out that were more like Troll Boss Bob conversions. There was a lot of sketches and sculpting that was done, and there was previews for models that never actually showed up.
Well, I mean, Epic was very much a niche game back then. Like I said, I had the army, and I think I played for a number of years, and I think I played a total of 3 people, and they were all locals who had it, and every time it was playing the same people.
If you thought 40K or 30K was a closet hobby, you go into the closet, you dig a ditch, and then under that is where you find the Epic players.
Under the floorboards, you see.
No, I've actually seen people play BFG, Battlefleet Gothic, and I actually had but like I've never seen anybody play Epic. ever.
So I just am saying because like I do see like for example the STLs for them all, like because like people are printing them for like you said terrain for Titanicus.
Yeah.
It's just there are a couple questions. Of course, I want to know how the game's gonna play. Like, is it gonna be fun? I mean, it looks like it would be super thematic. Just to see it on the table would be awesome. Okay, so that's one thing. That's the eye test. If the game is good, that'll be great. Fine, but then will it sell? Because one, who's interested? And then if people are interested, like a lot of those people have access to those and already probably printed the 3D models, right? Like I realized this morning, I've got a box of Epic models in my basement here that I just got in a trade once because someone's like, "Do you want these?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" I have no idea what I'm going to do with them, but I have probably an Epic army right now. I mean, depending on what that looks like. So
Yeah,
it's just
I've seen a lot of the stuff that's coming out, and a lot of people seem really excited, if nothing else, for the expansions that are coming to the pre-existing Heresy games. So you've
Yeah.
got Titanicus. They've announced that you're getting plastic dire wolves
Yeah.
with new guns, and so you're getting those over. The box set comes with some of the weapons that were in Epic and Final Liberation, the old PC game,
okay.
that never made it to Titanicus, are getting rules. So,
Yeah.
and then there's new terrain announced as well. So.
I am excited for anything that expands the scope and interest level of Heresy. Like
Hopefully-
I'm pro that. So
Yep,
I hope it does well enough to stick around. I hope this new direction they're going is worth it for the like 17 people who really played and loved Aeronautica Imperialis, who are now Xenos players who can't buy their models. I've got a friend, Mike, and he was so bummed. He's like, he has been playing Orc since 3rd edition. He has never bought another army. Okay? We convinced him to play Aeronautica, right? He's like, well, I'll play Orcs in Aeronautica. He got like 2 games in, and then like he found out that the models are going to be discontinued. So he's like, I'm never changing it up ever again. Never again.
Tell him
So.
just to buy a generic Space Marine army, put it for
He's-
Heresy, and he's good to go for pretty much every single thing they put out.
Fair enough, but you know your dedication to never playing a loyalist? Well, wait a second. Aren't you playing? Wait, you're painting Blood Angels now.
I'm painting Blood Angels, sir.
Ugh,
I'm doing this for Jack because
I need
he
a
asked.
drink. Okay. Well, anyway,
Wait, what?
Yeah,
this is Jack's fault.
It's all Jack's.
I'm blaming Jack. But yeah, it looks cool. It looks neat, and yes, it does expand the the Horus Heresy range. More games in it is cool. Bring more people into the hobby, because Lord knows there's 6mm ACW and Napoleonics players who might be interested in this. I mean, maybe they weren't around back when Epic was out originally. Who knows? Maybe they'll want to play. Maybe we can bring more people over. And maybe we can increase the Heresy player base. I personally would like to see that happen. I am hopeful. Other than that, maybe I'll get to break up the land trade again.
Choo choo.
Pretty much.
All aboard, baby.
Does that about cover our news items for the week?
Pretty sure that's a yes.
Sounds about right. John had brought a talking point to the fore for all of us regarding how you run events and what you like to see in attending events regarding different character limitations. So, I know for sure I've played in any of the 3, basically, between no named characters, no Primarchs, and everything goes. And I know that that's a conversation that the community has had before, and it seems like in the wake of the new edition is in the process of having again. Do somebody want to get us started off? Have strong opinions on anything?
Yeah, I've never really had strong opinions on it. I mean, I've never really fielded, and I like my Primarch. I like the name characters. I've just never finished building the models, and I've never finished going that way. So to me, it never really bothered me whether or not those were available. I mean, I know that some people say like, hey, my list doesn't work unless I am able to take Garland Surlac or somebody that unlocks certain things. But to me, it just seems weird because I've seen it both ways. I've seen like very hardcore people say like, "Oh, I'm not going to an event unless you allow characters," and then I've seen another way of, "Well, why aren't you allowing characters? You know, I'm not going unless they're allowed, or I'm not going unless they're not allowed." But it seems that like the TOs are trying to, or EOs are trying to create narratives of like, hey, you know, Primarchs or these named characters aren't going to be on every battlefield, and we're trying to make our own little stories here. So, can we limit these people showing up at these events? Like you said, there's the three option. I've seen some events say no Primarchs. I've seen some events say no named characters at all, and that includes, which is the weirder one to me is that Alpha Legion. What's his name?
Exodus, who's not
Exodus.
unique
Yeah.
in the current edition.
Named-ish character. So he's named, but he doesn't. He's not unique.
You should always be allowed. Fight me.
Yeah, I think so too. But I've seen people argue it both ways. But to me, I think that if a TO or EO is trying to go a certain route, if it's not for you, don't throw a huge fuss. But I think if you're gonna play in a game, I don't think I've seen a lot of people throwing a lot of vitriol at events that aren't allowing named characters or are allowing named characters. I don't get it. Like, we're such a small hobby to begin with. I don't understand why there's so much anger.
I can generally kind of back you there. So I do understand why there's anger and frustration, for the same reason that we have some amount of anger or frustration over allowing or not allowing some of the expanded supplement rules. We'll call them van rules, whether you talk that's Panoptica or what was the original one of those? Mournival. Yeah.
Mournival.
Yeah. People feel very strongly, and they become very attached to the armies they build and the stories they tell with those armies, and that can include the way those armies function. And so I can understand some of the frustration when you lose something that you've played the game up to this point with. Especially because, like, I've got skin in the game, as far as a lot of times I do find value in what a number of named characters bring to the table. But I almost always make a point to make a list that is functional to the best of my ability with and without the named character, and that's caused me some deep problems in this edition. But I fully support for events. I get why most commonly I feel like if I'm going to see a restriction, it is no Primarchs. Your quote unquote other lesser characters showing up and hanging out, not super surprising for most folks. Your Primarch being here, many people feel like that's a little more of a pill to swallow, if you're really trying to get in on world building for a setting. And as we talked about, I don't know if it's in the last episode or probably 2 episodes ago at this point, I do wish that we had ways to get Space Marine characters to do things besides just bring Paragon Blades and Thunderhammers, and that's my key frustration, and therefore, like, the number one reason why I do keep looking at these named characters, including Primarchs, is because most of the time they do something more, something different, and I really want that.
I hate saying this. I have a problem, not really so much as bringing one or not bringing one, but it seems kind of anti-thematic in a way for me to be sitting here playing in a late Heresy event, and oh look, there's Ferrus Manus, or to be playing at an event that's set at the Siege of Terra. Oh look, there's Gilliman. It just doesn't seem, I'm not gonna say right, it just doesn't fit for Primarchs to be everywhere. Because let's be honest, there's only 19 of them, I guess 18, and a dude with that missing head, of them total, and they're not everywhere. So
Well,
just,
if you're going by Siege of Terror, there's more than that have.
well, I mean, yeah, at that point,
Spoilers.
at that point, Alfarius is dead, and there's only
Yeah,
a
I was gonna
Megon.
say. Yeah, I was gonna say you're down one of the twins, and
Yeah. and you're still down Ferris, and
Yep.
and late heresy. Sure, Fulgrim's there, and where's his demonic what have you? Or, oh, look, there's Morty, and why isn't he demonic Morty? Oh, look, there's Angry Ron. Why isn't he Bloodthirster version of himself? It just
They haven't released rules for him yet. Just playing devil's advocate.
no, I agree with you. I don't mind
Yeah.
seeing Abaddon here. I don't mind seeing Exodus over there. I don't mind seeing Erebus or whoever on the tabletop. Because sure, these characters or someone like them can pop up anywhere. The Primarchs, however, it just doesn't seem thematic all the time to see Primarchs everywhere. I think Primarchs should be held in abeyance for really large fights, really large games, cataclysmic stuff going on where they actually would appear. Not just, oh, look, a standard 3,000 point game, and here's Lehman Russ. Bloop. Just
I think I actually have more of an issue with seeing like Rights of War banned than I do like say like all tank lists or something like that than I do like banning of Primarchs, to be honest with you. Or like named characters. I mean, there's always for most part there's ways to work around any sort of most of the character imposed restriction list or whatever. And I know like some of like Lucas, they've made a character like a generic character creation tool set for his events because they don't want like actual named characters playing in it because of like
they're not everywhere.
They're not everywhere. They've left the system, and I get it. But at least he's gone to the point where he's taken something away, but he's also given something back. You know what I'm saying?
And
It's
I
not-
like that. I like that too. And I think it gets to something Jacob said before is that the Ferrix stuff, the custom character creator thing, it allows you to think more about who your praetor is, your character is, and give them a rule to represent them and make them seem a little bit more special or different or unique or something. And I like that. I think that's really cool because like you said, I have, like my standard praetor that I run on my white scars if I want to, but he's just a guy on a bike. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
He doesn't get to have any special rules, whatnot, and he doesn't necessarily need it per se. I have his character in mind. It's built into the way I build my list when I run him, but the biggest thing for me is I love the Primarchs, and I guess depending on the legions that I was running with and against, I would feel feel bads for using them or not. Like, I love the Night Lords and I love Conrad Kurz. So like, if I was playing Night Lords, I want to bring Kurz. You know what I mean? And it does have a lot to do with the fact that I just think he's fascinating. Same with the Khan. But like, thankfully I'm not attached to Ferrus Manus when I play my Iron Hands. Because,
his head
neither
isn't
is his
attached to
head either.
there is that horror. But I enjoy having my own little character with a little bit of a story there for that one. And but the other thing too is that like you said, like Kurz has just unbelievable rules that give so much point value to your list that literally if you showed up and they're like, well, you can't use that, I'd be like, I don't know what to do here. Like,
I mean, like
fundamentally,
Savitar's the same way with the Night Lords. I mean, like he
Right.
does some very specific things for that army, and there isn't like a real replacement, like a generic replacement that can do that.
no.
And there's certain armies that are like that, and then there's, I mean, like was it Mordok or whatever with the Dark Angels, where he does stuff as well that's very specific. But I mean, like, if you're gonna, I guess if I was an EO, I would have to be, I would want to be upfront as possible, like when we're, like the list events are put out for like a, a big con or whatever. I would put up front that your armies can't include XYZ up front instead of waiting till a month or two before the actual event and then dropping that on people. You know what I'm saying?
The big thing too is that like I love a Primarch fight when it's
Yeah.
against another Primarch. Or you know what I mean? When two Primarchs
Yeah.
are on the table, I don't care how lore appropriate it is. Let's see these boys. Let's
Duke it out.
put these boys in a jar and shake it up.
So, like for events, let's say you're not allowed to take them on main games, but you are allowed to take them during side games or like
Sure.
the Apocalypse games and things like that.
Sure.
Is that better?
I think so.
But you have to have those side games. Some
But
events
that way you're
don't.
not. That way you're not completely. Like, would it completely facilitate you not going to a convention? If they
No,
said,
well, I mean, like I know with me, I was really perturbed with some of the rules for the LVO coming up. And to be honest with you, I'm not playing in the main narrative event. I'm actually just going to do ZM because I just didn't like the rules at all.
sure.
And I get it. I mean, I understand where it was coming from, but it was not appealing to me. So,
If I went to an event and it said no name characters, no Primarchs, I'd be okay going and playing if I wanted to, if everything seemed something I wanted to get involved with. But if it said no name characters, Primarchs, okay, I think that would be a bit more limiting. If they just said hog wild, do whatever you want, but no Fury of the Ancients, again, limiting I can understand for an event narrative wise, but limiting just to limit doesn't really make sense.
yeah. No, I get you.
One thing I do wish, and I will say, I wish that GW in one of these campaign books that comes out in the future would do kind of a build your own special rules into a Praetor, like we've discussed in the past.
Yeah.
Kind of like they had with was it the 4th edition? Or not Heresy, but 40K 4th edition. You had a kind of build your own chapter master type deal that actually had like legitimate rules, not just he was a big beat stick guy with a whatever special weapon.
Exactly.
A Thunderhammer and a Paragon Blade, as Jacob said.
Yeah, if they would bring that kind of thing back so you can build your own narrative around a guy and not make it too overpowered, just give rules even rather than stat bumps or anything, and make it cost appropriate levels of points based on whatever matrix they want, I would love that. I truly, truly would, because
that would be very cool.
Be more narrative focused. We could all basically run our own version of Bob the Praetor and have him actually mean something other than, oh, look, I get a bonus attack in the close combat because I have a Paragon Blade and a Thunderhammer. I also think it would make it more interesting narrative wise for people to convert Praetors to be their special dude, and we'd see more dedicated hobbying time put into ye generic Praetor than we do for a lot of people, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Or they could release the rules with a build your own Praetor kit.
Yeah, like Lucas's. As much as I like Lucas's, like Praetor upgrades, like Praetor or people that have progressed up through to Praetor level of like chaplain or librarian. I've talked on the show about how I paint. I really can't paint characters for events because of the way I stage the things that I'm working on. So to me, it's really cool that he's doing it, but at the same time, like, by the time I put something in the queue, it's not going to be done until like next year. So,
right.
So why bother? So if GW pick it up or something like that, I would love it. But I think for like event wise, it seems to me, and again, this is just the way that I play lists. Is I don't mind as much if I don't see characters allowed or characters not allowed, and I guess I do understand. After Espen had kind of explained it and Jamie had explained it, some of the not wanting to go to events. And I always said, vote with your dollar. If you don't want to go to, if somebody's not running something you like, don't go to the event. But kind of throwing the shade online and like, well, if you're not going to allow characters, F you, type of things like that I've seen online seems a little weird.
Yeah, I've definitely seen a lot of the whole F you from our community as a whole. And I'll be honest, I've been guilty of it myself. But
no,
hold on a second.
No way!
Hold on a second. I'm gonna go find some pearls I can clutch.
Okay, so that we're done with that. I'm really enjoying seeing a more positivity-based approach from the majority of the community as a whole, and that part makes me happy.
Yep.
I think the other thing too to remember is that, like, when you are an organizer of anything, be it an event or just whatever, you've got to corral a bunch of people into doing something together. You have to make rules and restrictions for the outliers who are going to make
Abuse.
things impossible for everyone else otherwise. And sometimes the unfortunate thing is that you, with good intentions, can end up being too closely aligned with one of those other ideas, and so you get the rough end of things. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So,
no,
like,
I understand.
so it's just like, and I mean, I think that most people get it. Like when they're like, I really want to play. I don't know. Is Sigismund as disgustingly broken now? I think he's less disgustingly broken this edition, right? But if you are a Sigismund player or an Imperial Fist player, and you're like, man, this guy is hell on wheels, and someone is like, you know what? Maybe it would be great if every newbie didn't have to face a Sigismund, and then you could be like, you know what? I dig that. That makes sense to me. But like sometimes I think that can happen. You can end up on the rough end of things. But like you said, if the overall understanding of like it's just an attempt by an organizer to make things fun and in their own style of that narrative, thing.
I believe the way to say this is you can please some of the people all
Yeah.
the time, but never all of the people all of the time.
Yeah.
So if you as an EO find that like your community supports you and you continue to see strong event turnout, do whatever you want, man. If you are wondering why you can't get the community to grow, and you are either implementing things that nobody has asked for, or conversely, are turning a blind eye to problems in your community, that might be a great way to start moving the needle in the right direction. I also have to go ahead and just put a little bit of a hot take out here. By us saying, like, oh, I just don't think it's realistic or appropriate for all of these characters, or especially Primarchs, to be in one place at one time. Do we care more about canon than Games Workshop does at this point?
Yes. Nerds always cared about canon more than the creators themselves.
Nerds think they care more about canon than anybody else.
Hold the gate.
Yep.
Open the gate a little bit.
A little bit. Oh, close the gate.
Why do we care more about canon than GW does at this point?
I think we feel, and I actually think I can answer this. I think it's because we have invested our dollars in it. We've put so much of our time. We've built a group of friends around the heresy, talking about it in casts, playing the games, chatting about it online, attending conventions and events just to hang out with one another doing this stuff. It kind of feels that we are invested in it so much that it's become part of our
identity,
I guess, in some ways.
Yeah, I mean, think about it from, GW, even if you go to GW and you care about the game, it's still 9 to 5 for them. I mean, even if they come home and don't want to, and then play their own games and do their own stuff, for them it's still a job, and there's still, I would assume that there's still kind of a distance between like fun and job. It's at least that's kind of the way I always kept it, even when I was painting for other people. It seemed that there was always the differentiation line there, but for us, it almost has become lifestyle, and that was GW's idea at the beginning, was capital H hobby. It was a brandable thing that nerds could base their lives around.
I mean, it's very true. I mean, I know every member of this cast, other than Jack, because of Heresy, and I know Jack because of Wargaming in general. I mean, it has for us taken on a life of its own, and it's become an integral part of us, who we each are. And I think that is why we feel we are so deeply invested in it, even if we may not be. And it's just nerds going to gravitate to things we gravitate to. We're going to have fun with what we want, and we're going to gripe and complain and embrace the lore. I mean, that's why you see it in Star Wars, you see it in Star Trek, you see it in World War II tank rivet counters. I mean, it's what we do.
Yeah, and as I learn more and more about weird mental health things that I may or may not have, if you're looking at ways to mine dopamine, GW has it in spades. You can go from painting one day to reading comics the next day to reading a book the next day to
John,
talking
stop
about
reading
business.
WebMD, man. I mean, it gives you it's a psychosis in itself.
Yep.
I mean, I agree. I just think it's important, let's say this.
Keep your hobby healthy.
Well, yeah. I think you got to keep some distance and try to help yourself understand that it is just a game. And, I was doing some research for a video that I'm going to try to get out in the next, I don't know. I'm not even going to pretend like I'm going to tell you when it's done, but I was doing some deep lore research.
Hey, I know when it's done.
You do?
When it's done.
When it's done. There you go.
When I get to watch it.
There you go. Well, anyway, so part of the thing, and maybe this will be a nice tease into what I'm going to talk about for the White Scars later. But the foundations of this game are so old and were so shakily established. You know what I mean? Like so threadbare thin when they started, and then we've been building on top of it. Like the foundation is, 40 years old, and it was sticks and mortar, sticks and mud. But like we have put so much into, as the lore expands or whatever, and people talk about, canon and whatever else. Like there has to be a point in line where we have to remind ourselves that this is a game, and there are some things that are going to be inconsistent and a little silly. But like,
would that be before or after we tattoo stuff on ourselves?
Hopefully before, but you can still get the tattoos. That's fine. Don't you show me your? I know you got it, buddy. There's nothing wrong with the tattoo. There's nothing wrong with the tattoo.
I mean, I kind of put this on myself when I was 19, so I'm 43.
Yeah, I was thinking about getting a Warhammer tattoo.
Considering my wedding ring is now an Aquila, I don't know.
Is it really? Is it really?
I almost got one when I went on a drunk rampage in downtown Nottingham. So.
Look, my wife is like the anti-nerd, and so like I talk to her about this stuff, and she just looks at me like she wants to and so like I was like, I think I want a tattoo of like something for Warhammer, and she's like, just put it someplace that no
one will ever see
put it on your chest and wear it for the rest of your life because I don't want to see it. So she is just Well, you're right. It is more about I think it's more about the connection with the people, but I don't know. We're going pretty far afield.
Yeah, but in reality, it's kind of a good thing to talk about because, yes, we are as a community insular, and we're suspicious of those who are different. We're suspicious of change because it's not what we're used to. But if we all just stuck with what we're used to, we wouldn't actually know one another. We wouldn't be playing this game. We wouldn't be doing this podcast. We wouldn't be part of the community ourselves. So change is going to happen. Change to the lore is going to happen. That's why the novels are all written as an unreliable narrator. Find a way to have fun with your hobby.
Yeah.
And try not to be toxic with it to yourself or to others. That's really all I can say.
It's because Gen X and millennials are we are suckers for nostalgia. And like we are still remember when you were in 6th grade and you first saw your models for the first time? Remember when you were 19, you got a tattoo on your shoulder?
Yeah, but also being Gen Xers, most of us, like everybody else considers us the generation that really doesn't just like let stuff, roll off our back. It doesn't.
It's kind of who we are.
It's kind of how we were cooking for ourselves at age 6 and stuff like that, and letting ourselves into the house, and Mom and Dad wouldn't worry about if we went to the quarry to go see a dead body, and that we'd just be back by nightfall and that kind of stuff. So
I think you had different parents than we did.
Where's Dad at to tell us that he was?
No, hold on. We were all at Adepticon that year when Ryan asked us, "Hey, y'all, want to see a dead body? Let's not."
That's Chicago in general. That's not just.
Oh, right.
All
So
right,
now
we
that
might
had
be a
that,
little off.
little cracked. Ned, talk to us about the White Scars.
Second, I don't think. I'm sorry, but I don't think you're gonna find a corpse just lying on the street of Schaumburg, Illinois.
It was under a table.
Right?
It was folded gently
dirty-
in a corner.
It's the dirty burbs.
It was right beside a bike.
Oh, okay, fair enough. White Scars. What are we doing? What's going on?
Well, you tell us. You're
Show
the
us
White
what you
Scars.
got. Tell us.
whoa.
Give us the lore. What's the
What a
deep lore on space
what a-
Mongols?
What a
White
terrible introduction by me. Okay.
I'll show you yours if you show me. I'll
No,
show you mine.
Ah, you screwed that up. You screwed that up.
We could all try to do the White Scar voice from the book.
Oh no, please don't. It's so bad. Dude, I can't believe nobody in QA or quality control or somebody was like, hey, I don't know about
Jonathan
this, man.
Keeble, you're fired.
Could just say boom more often. It'll make it.
So-
Or wet leopard growl.
Wet leopard. Oh, there you go. Okay, so White Scars. All right, so I'm gonna give you a little bit of a I'm gonna give you a theory here. All right, or a proclamation, which is the White Scars lore as it is presented in the Horus Heresy novels is the best Legion presentation in the novels and short stories. Okay, and I'm gonna tell you why I think that. A couple things. I see your scowl. I see your scowl. That's Duncan scowling for the rest of you. You don't know that. Now here's why.
listening.
Hold on. Just listen. Part of the reason why is because, and I actually found a quote here by Chris Raitt, who was the author of the series, and it's a really unique experience that gets to happen because of, well, the way the books are written in general, but also with the way that the White Scars are written. So, like, for those who do know and for those who don't, the lore for these novels and for the universe in general, like I said, it's like, this is like this is like napkin stories, okay? Like little notes that are written down, added up, slowly it accumulates in like little White Dwarf articles or whatever, and it generates the canon. Eventually we get and so it's like 30 years of process to get these stories out to be the way they are. What's really interesting about that is that there's very little written about the White Scars. Very, very little said about them, other than the basic understanding of, yes, there is like a space Mongolia, or like this is the Space Marine Army that uses bikes, right? That's how I was introduced to them. They're the ones that ride a lot of bikes. So when they got a chance to start writing it in the Horus Heresy and even, the 40K universe, basically there was almost little written. And so in the afterword to Scars, which is the first full novel for the story of the White Scars, Chris Raitt wrote, "Working up the Legion in conceptual form was great fun. Even before the limited edition novella Brotherhood of the Storm was written, some key ideas had been laid down, but the first of them was the symmetry between the obscurity of the Fifth Legion in the real world and in the fictional universe. It couldn't be an accident that hardly anyone referenced the Khan in the Heresy. It had to be a feature of his style of war. This fit nicely, it seemed to me, with the plains nomad imagery that's always been their hallmark, so the Khan becomes an outsider, an other, someone about whom even the Emperor knows little, and whose actions become uniquely hard to predict. To the extent that every Primarch has a feature, that's his." And so, like, that concept, that is the author's concept, and what's really interesting is that Chris Raitt goes on to write basically every story that features the White Scars specifically. He writes Brotherhood of the Storm, Scars, the short stories Allegiance, Grey Talon, Brotherhood of the Moon. He writes the novel Path of Heaven, Restorer, the Primarch novel, and then, of course, Warhawk, which is the Siege of Terra book. Okay? So before we get into this, I just want to point out that one of the things that the White Scars have that almost nobody else has is a story that is shaped by a single mind. All right? So there is a chain of continuity in concept, which almost none of the other legions can really say or talk about in that way. Now, some of the other articles, some of the other authors that are like all over the place, like Abnett and Dembski-Broden, like they write a lot, but they cover a lot of different stuff. And so a lot of their fingerprints are on a lot of different things. Does that make sense? So like Abnett's fingerprints, Abnett's tone is on a lot of the heresy. So when you're reading Abnett's books, you get that same flavor in stories about the Sons of Horus, stories about, the Ultramarines or whomever else it is that you're talking about. Make sense so far?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about the narrative. So with that idea of the unknowingness, of the elusiveness, of the unpredictability, that's Chris Wraith's idea as he sits out to try to put the White Scars together. So Jagatai Khan is on Chagoris. He is the Primarch of the White Scars, and just like everybody else, their legion is out there in the universe, and eventually they are found and reunited, and the White Scars are created. So they get together, and they go out throughout the universe, and they're doing their thing, and they're basically acting as the forerunners, the advanced scouts, pushing the edges of the Great Crusade. And one of the things that's interesting, of course, all of the Primarchs have this thing where they go back to Terra, and they hang out with the Emperor for a little while before they go back out onto the Great Crusade, right? So Jagatai is by far not the only one who has a problem or doesn't necessarily see eye to eye or have the greatest relationship with the Emperor. But there are moments in the story which talk about the fact that basically, from the start, Jagatai was shaky on the concept of the Great Crusade and the methods by which they were doing things, and then also the nature of what the Emperor was in relationship to the freedom of the people that he was going to champion, right? So he was already kind of uncomfortable with what the Emperor's mission was and what he was going to do. So after Alinor, at the Triumph of the Great Crusade, Horus is War Master, and Horus is basically one of two Primarchs that the Khan actually befriends and is really, really close with. The first is Horus, and his other buddy is Magnus. And so he gets sent off to Chagoris because of Alpha Legion shenanigans and some other things. He is out of contact for quite a long while, and then Istvan 5 happens. Istvan 3 happens. And then Istvan 5 happens as well. They can't get a hold of him. But in the meantime, Horus attempts to send a message to the Khan and asks him to go do something for him. He asks him to go find and destroy the Space Wolves, because he knows that the Khan is close to Magnus and the events of Prospero have taken place, and so he's going to go after Layman Russ. All right. So the Khan gets messages about the Istvan atrocities starting. He also gets messages from Horus telling him to go attack the Space Wolves because of what happened on Prospero. The Khan has these pieces of information and he hesitates. Okay. And this is the thing that I really like the most about the Khan. So there are lots of other Primarchs that have motivations which seemingly make sense, or are a little bit less, a little bit more flimsy. I like Perturabo, but essentially sometimes it seems like if he had gotten some hugs, he might not have turned out bad, which is maybe a little bit, there are stronger motivations we can write. The Khan, though, upon hearing about this betrayal, it's not even necessarily so much that he is concerned about the betrayal. He is concerned about the fact that, he's not sure that he was ever sold on the Emperor's vision to begin with. It's not until he goes to Prospero and he speaks to one of the fragments of Magnus's soul and realizes the sort of demonic influence and other nonsense that is become of Magnus and what they're doing, that he decides that he will align himself with the Emperor and stand with Terra. And that's fantastic and so crazy because, he's one of the Scars are one of the only forces that really make it back in force for the Siege of Terra. And he's almost not even there, right? He's a hairbreadth away from not being there. Another thing that's really cool. Have you guys all read Scars? See some nods. No? Oh, man, Jamie, this is for you, buddy. Okay. So, another thing that happens is Scars is actually a pretty slow book. But in the process of it, there is one of his commanders, one of the commanders of the Brotherhoods, oh my gosh, what is his name? I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget. Hasek Noyan Khan, who was one of the guys on Chogoris who was hanging out with the Khan before he was discovered, one of the Khan's close friends. And he actually ends up getting turned by the Sons of Horus and creates lodges within the White Scars, and they stage a coup. So the Khan is down on Prospero, and he is talking to, or trying to find a moment to talk to Magnus to try to see what happened on Prospero. And when they are in space, in orbit around the Prospero system, the Khan's on the planet, and the Death Guard show up. And Mortarion has also been sent there to make sure that the Khan does the right thing and join them. And then there is a coup, and the White Scars, a small section of the White Scars, attempt to take over the capital ships, strand the Khan down on Prospero, and take control of the Legion and bring it to Horus's side. So, like, there's some crazy stuff that happens. There's a little bit of mini civil war within the Legion sort of thing. There's a fantastic duel between the Khan and Mortarion, which is awesome because gets something that gets set up for later in the siege. And then they break away. And then it also sets up another cool thing, which is attached to that Rite of War that I have talked about a couple times on the episode, the Sagyar Mazan. So, like, all of the guys that betrayed the Khan, as opposed to just killing them, the Khan is like, here's what you guys are going to do. We're going to give you these crap ships. You're going to head out into the void, and you're going to fight and kill traitors until you're dead. And then after you die, then you will be forgiven because you went and fought like crazy until the end. And so it's another thing, is that one of my favorite rites of war in the game is translated from one of the coolest moments and ideas that are present in the novels. So yeah, then they come back to Terra. There's some fantastic moments. I mean, because like having Dorn, the Khan, and Sanguinius all in the same place trying to defend Terra is like such an odd brothers or odd couple sort of combination. But it's just really fantastic. So the whole concept of the Legion, the flavor of the Legion is one of, like, they're a little bit unknowable, they're a little bit mysterious, they're a little bit ethereal, and it's very well represented in their lore, in their concept, and it builds. There's great payoffs on lots of characters. You've got Targatai Yutsugai, who is like the head librarian, which is called a Stormseer, close friend to the Khan, one of his most trusted advisors. He has a fantastic story and arc that lasts throughout. You've got Ilya Revelian, who is like maybe probably a contender for the second best human character in the Horus Heresy series. I'd put her right up there with Latara Sarin. For like, yeah, there you see, Duncan, I knew I'd make you happy again. But I'd put both of them. They both have that same energy of just like really interesting characters. Revelian is like basically she's like a logistics officer, but like her human perspective and her sensible sort of beliefs about things when put up against the mercurial and sort of unknowable concepts of the White Scars, it makes for a fantastic counterpoint to really expand on all of those characters and whatever. And then of course there's the Toxier himself, Shibin Khan, who is the character who's like the title character from the what word am I thinking? Oh, the Brotherhood of the Storm short story, and then he's present in all those things. One thing I'm really mad about is he doesn't have a character model yet. Kind of unbelievable to me, but regardless. So I mean, there's a million things I could talk about, but I just don't know what else to say.
Okay, I'll other than the shout out to Latara Sarin, obviously being the best human character.
One of the best, I said. Definitely one of the best.
Yeah, I stand by what I said. What really drove you to wanting to play the Scars over, say, any other Legion? What makes you want to play them, other than their lore, other than their rules? What drove you to it?
I first looked into them because I read the stories, and there is, well, I think that the combination between Scars and Path of Heaven, which are the two novels that, like, the two main novels, I would say it's just a fantastic, complete story. It's very rewarding. The character growth is fantastic, and I love the fact that this was a Legion that I knew absolutely nothing about and cared nothing about until I picked up this book, and suddenly I just fell in love with the concept of it, right? So I mean, like, there's just so many. I don't know that we've talked about it here. I know Duncan and I have had conversations before about the fact that one of the for a Legion like the Sons of Horus, for example, which is supposed to be center to the entirety of the saga, right? The first 3 books, which are supposed to be about them, don't really do as much to spell out what the Legion is, so much as it is a book about Loken. Would you agree with that, Duncan?
Very much.
Okay.
At least the first one. The second one, oh heck, honestly, yeah, you're right. They're more the story of Loken than they are really the story of the Sons of Horus, or even the story of the beginning of the heresy.
And for the fact, I did a video where I ranked the Legion lore in a sort of a stupid tier list. And I remember being a little critical of the Sons of Horus, for example, because despite the fact that they're all over the place in the story, their identity is not as defined as I would like it to be, right? And I feel like I know exactly who the White Scars are. I feel like I know exactly how they feel about being a part of the heresy. I feel like I know one of the things that I appreciate the most is I've always thought it was really silly in a universe that is so completely I mean, like, it is parody, okay? Like, the actual design of this is parody, but the characters have to treat it as real, all right? If you're in acting or if you're in drama or whatever, you know, they say to make comedy you have to play it serious, and to make drama you have to play it for jokes. And the characters in the White Scars stories, they're loyal not because it's just very clearly the thing that they feel like they need to do. They're not traitor because they were named Angron and destined to be angry and bad. The White Scars end up being loyal because the Khan, after looking at all of the options in front of him, decides that in a universe that is transient, fickle and whatever else, his word of loyalty to his father is the thing that will carry him through this moment. And there's something really, really powerful about that concept to me. I am also, you can clearly tell, an English teacher. That idea of themes and whatever else really speaks to me. Also, the fact that being able to, I love armies where you can run multiple different styles that are very different from each other, and it feel, you know what I mean? Like, I have one list which is basically dudes in tanks right now, which is my Iron Hands army. I have sort of a heavy infiltrate list that I run when I run my Dark Angels, and that seems pretty cool. But the Scars I get to play, and they are, as opposed to asking, is this a shooting army? Is this a melee army? The Scars are a movement army, and they're very unique in that regard. And it's really fun to play. It's really fun to think about, and I just love it.
Okay. So, I don't really think I have any other questions. I like the concept of the White Scars. I like their lore. And obviously, I'm a giant lore nerd since I've read all the books, and yeah, just 30K is my jam. But I definitely kind of agree with you about the whole Sons of Horus lore is there. It's not quite as.
I mean, they're all over the place, but
They
right.
really are.
I mean,
you're absolutely right. The Scars are not. They're very solid. And Chris Wright Wright, or however you pronounce his name, did a very solid job in writing it. Because he was also right, and so are you. Second edition, they existed as a name, and it's kind of the Mongols in space idea, but they didn't have fluff. There wasn't a lot of fluff for them throughout first ed, second, third, fourth. They really started getting a little bit in fifth, but until then, there was almost nothing, and I don't think there was really ever any great amount of fiction, even short stories at all, told about them until the heresy, to be honest with you. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I don't remember any, and I've got a lot of Black Library novels behind me.
Well, and I don't like I was gone for fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh. Literally, I came back to 40K. I had some friends being like, "You should play 30K. It's more fun." And I was like, "What should I play?" And I started with Iron Warriors, and I was like, "I'm good. I'm good. I've got a Legion. This is fine. This was easy to paint." And then I picked up some books. I started reading through the books, and I was like, "Oh man, this is kind of fun." Like, oh, I really like. Oh, Betrayer's a good novel. Blah blah blah. Moving through, and then I hit Scars, and I was like, "Gee, oh my gosh!" It just changed. It was like, I don't know. It's just a solid story, and like I said, it feels and plays like something just entirely different.
So, I'll kind of as our time winds down here, rather than us sort of retreading some unpleasant elements of the Black Library's writing. You mentioned Warhawk. If you had one other story or piece about White Scars to point people toward, what would that be? What is your definitive? If this piece doesn't hook you on White Scars, nothing will.
I think you need to read Scars and Path to Heaven. Warhawk is great, but it's not as good. Scars is the novel that sets up the identity of the White Scars and helps you understand how they see themselves, and then, you know, talk about how others see them. Um, and then Path to Heaven is the story of how they get to Terra and the kind of sacrifices that they're willing to make, and the story of the Magyar Mizan. It's a fantastic 1-2 punch. And also it has great involvement in, like, there's some great Eidolon in Path to Heaven. There's some really fantastic if you're an Emperor's Children fan, like there's the Palatine Blade characters, which are really cool in that story. There's some fantastic what's his name? The Spider. Why can't I think of his name? Fabulous Bill, Fabius Bile. And then I mean, like I said, the Death Guard are present in both of those stories as well. So there's some really great Mortarian stuff.
I think you also kind of have to include in that the Solar War, because there's a lot of them in there also.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, if there's the Solar War is great with Jubal Khan. He's fantastic in that. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sorry, I can't do it. But I would say this: read Scars, and then read Path to Heaven, and then you'll come back and you'll just look for the rest of the books to read because they're fantastic. Actually, you know what I've got here? Hold on a second. One tick. Chris Rate, actually, this is the chronological order that he thinks you should read his books. Okay? So he thinks if you want to start from the beginning, if you want to get the whole White Scars thing, you should start with Brotherhood of the Storm, which introduces
Taxi.
oh my god, with Torgan Khan and Shibin Khan, who are essential characters in the Scars novel. Then you read Scars, which is the full-length novel. And then Allegiance, which is set between Scars and Path to Heaven, and it's sort of a side story, a little short story. Grey Talon, which is it follows a captured destroyer crewed by White Scars and some Iron Hands. It's a Shattered Legion story as well. Then Brotherhood of the Moon, which is another short story ebook. Then Path of Heaven, which is the full novel. Restorer, which is another short story. Then you should read Jagatai Khan, the Primarch novel, because it has a lot of stories about, like, you know, it's the Primarch novel. It's sort of a prequel to all these events, but you'll see certain characters which are important later, and it sort of pulls on those. It puts in that foreshadowing and helps you feel the pain of seeing characters who are good once but become awful later. And then finally end with Warhawk, book 6 of the Siege of Terra. And that's not just what I think. That's what Chris Wright, that's what the author himself thinks you should do. So there you go, fair listeners.
Certainly a strongly recommended list. That being said, is there more to immediately say about the White Scars before we spend, hopefully next episode, being able to dive into the unit entries for them?
I'm gonna geek out so hard next week talking about ways to build this army. Just if you thought I didn't shut up this week, you just wait. Accountability Buddy listeners, it's gonna be terrible. I mean, wonderful. It'll be wonderful.
Excellent. We'll look forward to it. Here's hoping we can have you on for it. With all of that having been said, thank you, dear listeners, for joining us for our intro episode or rundown episode on the lore of the White Scars. I've been Jacob, and on this episode I've been joined by...
Duncan.
Jack?
Jamie.
John.
And Ned.
Once again, huge shout and thank you to Ned of the Ineptus Astartes podcast. We've been overjoyed to be able to have you back on the show with us. As for you listeners, remember, let us know if you would like us to start covering Legions Imperialis. And otherwise, remember, stay accountable to your hobby and to your buddies, and we'll see you next time.